What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have two areas of interest currently in the Atlantic Ocean right now, and we also have another possible area of interest that could be happening in the Lesser Antilles in the next week or so. So we're going to have to pay attention to all of that. And we'll get you all the information we can as we continue this. So here's what we have going on right here. According to the National Hurricane Center, which, just to give you a heads up, I'm going to be doing a little bit of a rant today with Invest 92L. So we'll get to that in just a second, but I'll start with this area of interest over here that currently has a 50% chance of formation in the next 48 hours. A broad area of low pressure is forecasted to form over the Bay of Campeche by this evening. Environmental conditions appear conducive for gradual development of the system as it moves slowly west-northwestward or northwestward, and tropical depression could form over the southwestern Gulf this weekend. Interests along the Gulf Coast should monitor the progress of the system. 60% chance in the next 7 days, 50% in the next 48 hours. Now, that's what I'm paying attention to with this, but this one over here, I'm going to go on a bit of a rant right here after I'm done reading this, because I saw the earlier update and it pissed a lot of people off in the weather community. So here's what we have going on. Satellite imagery and National Weather Service Doppler radar data indicate that showers and thunderstorms associated with a well-defined low-pressure area centered about 80 miles east-southeast of Brunswick, Georgia, continue to lack the necessary organization for the low to be considered a tropical cyclone. NHC, I'm sorry, you just contradicted yourself right there. Only a small increase of organization of showers and thunderstorms could result in the formation of a short-lived tropical depression before it reaches the coast of the northeastern Florida or Georgia tonight, and interests there should monitor its progress. Okay, let's take a look at what we're looking at with the thunderstorms, NHC, right here. I kind of understand where you're coming from, but a lot of the satellite images show this thing being a bona fide tropical system. So what the hell are you talking about? So let's go. I actually want to go ahead and pull up the archive, tropical cyclone advisories right here. That's not the right one. Let's go ahead and do tropical weather outlooks. And let's just go to the earlier one just to kind of show you what I'm talking about. This is what they had earlier right here. Updated. Recent data from an Air Force Reserve reconnaissance aircraft and visible satellite imagery indicates that an area of low pressure located 120 miles east of Jacksonville has developed a well-defined center of circulation and is producing winds of near 35 miles per hour, but the showers and thunderstorms are not quite organized enough for the system to be considered a tropical cyclone. We've seen numerous tropical cyclones without thunderstorm activity near the center that you've designated tropical storms or tropical depressions. Why the hell is this not a tropical depression? Why? Why the hell are you doing this? And people called them out on Twitter right here. We can actually go ahead and try and pull this up very quickly just to show you what we're looking at right here. Let's go ahead and search up National Hurricane Center right here. And then we can go ahead and go to the earlier one right here. Yeah, this is what we had going on. Okay, this is not the correct. This is not the correct one. This is from a day ago. Here it is. This is your post that we had right here. A lot of people started calling you out because that looks like a tropical cyclone at this point. And I'm looking at the satellite images, and we saw this with Danny. You designated that a tropical system, but not the one afterward. Like, come on, what are you doing? You've got to be kidding me. You're contradicting yourself in all these NHC archive, these posts right here. In fact, let's go ahead and show you this one that we had. Well-defined low-pressure area, continue to right here, continue to lack the necessary organization for the low to be considered a tropical cyclone. What the hell are you talking about? Come on. You've got to be kidding me with this. This is clear. Like, I don't know what the thinking behind this is. And I should have prefaced with this. The NHC are just trying to do their job. Okay, I understand. But come on. If you are seeing your own data is saying, hey, this looks like it's a tropical depression already. Matter of fact, Hurricane Hunter reconnaissance already showed that this is a closed low. So what the hell are you talking about? I'm going to go ahead and stop with the rant right here because I'm just repeating myself at this point. But the point still stands, NHC. This should be designated as a tropical depression. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what kind of data you're seeing that doesn't prove that. But you guys got to do better. And I'm going to go ahead and stop with this rant and just get right into the conditions because it's been a very nauseating morning taking a look at that. Here's what we have with the global sea temperatures right here. Sea surface temperatures, interestingly, in the Gulf of Mexico have decreased quite a bit, which I think is kind of interesting. Again, you're not going to see this thing just being a constant rise. It's going to be fluctuating up, down, up, down, up, down a little bit, it's like a mesoscale version of it. But you're going to see that constant trend of the sea surface temperatures continuing to rise and everything like that. So overall, this is just kind of like a small oscillation in the current rise of the global sea surface temperatures. And it's kind of reflecting here on the climate reanalyzer. We're starting to see a bit of a slowdown in the heating, at least temporarily. I fully expect that to continue to surge, especially as we get into August and we get into September, where it peaks right here. So that's what I'm paying attention to right there, the global sea temperatures right there. Main development region, piping hot, 28 plus degrees Celsius or 82 plus degree Fahrenheit for those of you in the United States. But a lot of the 30 plus degrees Celsius or 86 plus degree Fahrenheit waters have receded quite a bit. The areas did. I thought it was kind of interesting to point that out, but we'll have to pay attention to that. Here's the OHC right here. OHC is still very large. We still have a very large amount of OHC in the Gulf. We still have a very large amount of OHC in the main development region. Still extremely large OHC areas in the Caribbean Sea. So that's definitely stuff that you're going to have to pay attention to right here. Is essentially with the OHC measures, like I keep telling you this in a broken record in every video, it measures how warm the water is, and it measures how deep it goes. So that's just kind of an oversimplified explanation of it. I'm not going to get into the math of it or anything like that because we'd be here for 30 minutes. So that's what we have with the OHC. Next thing we're showing you is the wind shear. And wind shear is going to be a bit interesting, especially with this Bay of Campeche and Gulf of Mexico system, because this small pocket of wind shear is expected to recede and allow for even better wind shear than what we were seeing with Tropical Storm Alberto. So that's definitely something you're going to need to take a look at right there, and something you're absolutely going to need to pay attention to as we continue to look at the data and as we continue to look at more information coming in as we continue to monitor this. So that's what we're looking at with the wind shear at this current point in time. Wind shear, where Invest 92L is, it's in an area of moderate wind shear, which again, it's been fluctuating up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. But pay attention over here to what we're looking at with the main development region, because we're going to go ahead and show you this in the shear forecast. But we're expecting a bit of a decrease of wind shear across a lot of this region right there. And we're going to go over a few other things that we're potentially looking at, because right now, from what I'm seeing with several models, the Lesser Antilles could see some tropical activity ramping up in the next little while or so. So we'll go ahead and show you all of that. We'll start with the shear and the moisture forecast to kind of give you an idea of what we're potentially looking at with all three of these systems. All three of these systems, starting with 92L, it's going to make landfall later tonight. So overall, I'm not too worried about that at this current point in time. It's something to pay attention to. But then you are starting to see the wind shear just completely collapse in a matter of, like, what is this? 12 hours, we're seeing the wind shear collapse across a lot of the areas in the western Gulf of Mexico. So definitely something to keep a very close eye on, and that could allow for a short area possibility of it could allow for a short amount of time for this thing to organize and develop if the system gets its act together in time. So we'll have to pay attention to all of that right there. And the wind shear kind of calms down and persists across a lot of the areas in the Gulf of Mexico. But now we're going to go ahead and shift out to the entire North Atlantic right here. The entire main development region starts to weaken with the wind shear. I mean, you still have this isolated area right there. Definitely something to pay attention to. But overall, as we start to get into the next few days or so, it starts to kind of push a little bit further to the north and potentially allow for a tropical cyclone to organize and develop in the main development region, as we're going to start seeing essentially what a bit of a pattern shift. We're going to see that fluctuation. We're going to see a bit of decreased shear across much of the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico, and a bit of decreased shear in parts of the main development region that could allow for some tropical development to happen. So that's what we are dealing with the shear forecast. Let's go ahead and show you the moisture forecast that we have pulled up right there. The moisture is going to be a bit interesting, I will say. There is going to be a lot of moisture, a huge moisture infusion in parts of the Gulf of Mexico, where this tropical system is expected to organize and develop. There is going to be a bit of dry air across much of the main development region, mainly due to Sahara dust and everything like that. I'm still going to pay very close attention to it, but overall what we're going to be seeing is just a continuation of that. Although we do see a bit of a moisture plume with the intertropical convergence zone, as well as another tropical wave coming off the coast of Africa, and allowing for maybe the main development region to moisten up a bit more to allow for some tropical development. So yeah, now we're going to go ahead and show you some ensemble runs that we have pulled up for you right here. Let's go ahead and start with the European ensemble that we have going on across much of the region right here. This is what we have for the main sea level pressure anomaly, at least for the ensemble member. So let's go ahead and show you that right about now. Let's go ahead and use the 0Z just to give you the fullest extent of what we are looking at right here. 0Z European, if we go ahead and start with the Gulf or Bay of Campeche one right here, let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit on it. It's definitely overall a weaker system, probably tropical depression, weak tropical storm, according to some of the ensembles I have been paying attention to. And overall, the European is interestingly wanting a few ensemble members do want something to organize and develop in the Caribbean, which I think is kind of interesting, but I wouldn't get your hopes up for that. Just the ensemble members are few and far between, and it's definitely something I am going to pay attention to. But then we start to get to the Lesser Antilles over here in the tropical Atlantic over here. So starting about what is this 5 days out, pay attention to these ensemble runs that we have pulling up right here. You start to see a bit of a concentrated few organizing and developing right there, with some potential scenarios with this happening. Interestingly, out of all this, we're seeing how many ensembles is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, potentially 10-ish ensemble runs out of quite a few. I think it's about 30 for the European and 51 for the GFS. I could be wrong about that. I'll have to ask David about that in a second. But yeah, about 10 ensemble runs right here have this thing potentially organizing and developing into the mid-Atlantic, not the mid-Atlantic, but the Lesser Antilles right there. And I'm paying close attention to this because we are going to see an area where the conditions will improve slightly enough to allow for tropical development, and that's why I'm taking it very seriously. Next one I'm showing you is the GFS ensemble right here. I'm not a massive fan of the GFS, to be honest, but I am using it because of the aggregate that it's being offered with. GFS 2 is pretty interesting, to say the very least. The GFS doesn't have as many ensembles, but the ensembles it does have allow for some strong tropical development, which I think is interesting. And do I think this is going to happen? Are we going to see a Category 1 hurricane in the main development region in the middle of in June or July? Probably not. No, the conditions aren't that favorable, but I do think it's kind of interesting that some models are starting to pick up on it and other models aren't just yet. And the last one I'm checking too is the Canadian ensembles as well, because those have been pretty interesting. I've been taking a look at those, and the Canadian forecast, at least when it comes to the operational, does have something in the Antilles, and we'll show you that in just a second. But here's the Canadian ensemble that we have pulled up for you for the 12Z. Canadian ensemble is pretty interesting, I would say. It has more of a chance of things happening, organizing, and developing in parts of the Caribbean Sea over here than the Leeward Islands. It just has to get through a lot of wind shear and maybe some dry air and all that before it pops off. But quite interestingly enough, we do have quite a few scenarios of this thing happening. Granted, this is 180 hours out, and I'm not particularly buying it until the operational model says the exact same thing. And we can go ahead and show you the CMC right here. Yeah, it doesn't really have anything happening with the operational though, but the operational does have the system organizing and developing, and we can go ahead and move back to the tropical Atlantic right here. This thing starts to organize and develop. It comes off of Africa as a tropical wave, interacts with the intertropical convergence zone, then it starts to organize and develop as it starts to detach and becomes its own low pressure system. And then you start to see this thing approaching the Lesser Antilles. What we're seeing right here is pretty interesting. We're seeing a small tropical cyclone right here, 1,008 millibars, heavy rainfall and everything like that. I want to check what the winds are looking like at this. Let's see what the winds are, at least with that. We can. I don't think we can zoom in any further, unfortunately. But yeah, we're looking at potentially maybe 40 knots or 50 miles per hour with that, which again may be a bit unreliable because this is 10 days out. But I'm still going to be paying attention to that, as the Antilles have been showing increasing signs of organization and development with this. So we're going to keep a very close eye on it. We're going to go ahead and also show you some other operational models, because granted, this is in the European AI model are the only operational ones that do have something, but a lot of the ensembles that I've been taking a look at, David was showing me this on Weather Nerds last night, which is why I was trying to show you that earlier, was because, essentially what he was showing me with that was pretty interesting stuff happening with it. It's pretty interesting organization potential happening. We're not 100% sure if this is going to organize or develop or not, but overall it's looking increasingly likely, considering that now even operational forecasts are starting to pick up on it. Now, the European, the main focus I have with this is this tropical system that is going to be impacting the Bay of Campeche. I'm going to tell you this right now. If it does develop, it's going to be a weak tropical storm. The worst impacts are going to be the rainfall, and that's going to be concentrated in parts of Mexico where already you've seen the worst impacts of it happening. So that's definitely something to pay attention to. But overall, I'm not that concerned when it comes to organization and development with wind speed and all that stuff. GFS, similar situation as well. Wants this thing to maybe get to weak tropical storm strength, but main threat is going to be flooding for all of that. Canadian model, similar situation. Main threat's going to be flooding. If it does organize, it's going to be a brief tropical depression or tropical storm. We'll have to pay attention to it. NavGem, similar situation right there, although the NavGem has been trending a bit stronger as of recently, so we'll pay attention to that, but overall, it's similar setup, and the icon, we can pull that up last. The icon is usually iconic for a more northern bias. Similar situation as before, except we're looking at a weak tropical depression, or not weak tropical depression or weak tropical storm at best. So this is all stuff I'm going to continue to keep an eye on here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. We are looking at a potential threat increase for the Lesser Antilles, and that's something I will keep an eye on over the weekend and the next week or so, just so that way you guys are ahead and you guys know what's going on. We're closing the video out right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Remember, we are trying to get to 10,000 subscribers by July 17th, which is my 21st birthday. So if you could hit that red subscribe button if you haven't already, that would be much appreciated, and I would really be thankful if you did that. We're already at 7,800 subs, so let's see if we can get the other 2,200 in the next 26 days. The goal of this channel, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. And if you want to come hang out with us or kind of help out with the tropical season this year, please join the Storms United Discord server. Link to that is right over there. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.